The year was 2247. Humanity had spread across the stars, building colonies on distant worlds. Explorers, traders, and diplomats traveled between systems, carrying the name of Earth farther than ever before. Among them was a young pilot and explorer named Daniel Hayes. He was not famous, nor was he wealthy. He was simply curious about the galaxy and eager to see what lay beyond the maps. Daniel was traveling in a small survey shuttle when his ship's engines failed near an uncharted world. Warning lights flashed red across the cockpit. He tried to reroute power, but the shuttle shook violently. With no other choice, he guided the vessel into the atmosphere of the planet. Clouds blazed orange as the ship descended. Daniel gritted his teeth, struggling with the controls until the craft slammed into the ground with a loud crash. When the dust cleared, Daniel realized he was alive. The shuttle was damaged but not destroyed. He checked the systems. Communications were down and it would take days to repair the engine. He sighed. Looks like I'm stuck here for a while. He stepped outside, expecting a barren landscape, but what he found surprised him. The world was green and alive. Tall silver trees swayed in the wind, their leaves shimmering under a pale sky. Strange birds glided overhead, their wings glowing faintly in the sunlight. It was beautiful, almost dreamlike. Daniel set up camp near the shuttle and began repairs. He thought he was alone. He was wrong. On the second day, he noticed shadows moving near the trees. At first, he thought it was just animals. Then he heard voices, soft musical tones unlike any human language. When he turned, he saw them. Tall figures with silver skin wearing flowing garments of woven light. Their eyes glowed faintly like stars reflected in water. They were cautious but not hostile. Daniel froze, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. One figure stepped forward, smaller than the rest. She was a child no more than 10 in human years. Her eyes were bright, curious, and filled with wonder. The taller figures seemed like guards or attendants, but the child pushed past them with boldness. She walked right up to Daniel. "Who are you?" she asked in a clear voice. Her accent was strange, but Daniel could understand her words through the ship's translator. "I'm Daniel," he said gently. "I come from Earth. My ship broke, so I'm fixing it." The child tilted her head. "Earth? I have not heard this name. You are not of our stars. You are different." Daniel nodded. "Yes, I'm human," the child smiled. "I am Liara, daughter of the High Queen." She straightened her small shoulders, trying to look important. "That makes me a princess," Daniel blinked. "A princess?" He hadn't expected royalty to appear in the middle of the forest. He bowed politely, trying to be respectful. "It's an honor to meet you, Princess Liara," she giggled. "You bow funny." Her guards frowned at her boldness, but she ignored them. She circled Daniel, studying his clothes, his hands, and his tools. "You are small, not like our warriors, but you do not fear. Why?" Daniel chuckled softly. "Because you don't seem dangerous. And besides, fear never fixes anything. Only patience does." Liara considered this with wide eyes. To her, the words sounded wise. She had grown up surrounded by warriors and nobles who spoke in commands, never in simple kindness. The strange human seemed different. Over the next days, Liara visited Daniel often. She asked endless questions. Why do humans eat bread? What is rain like on Earth? Can humans sing? Do humans dream? Daniel answered patiently, laughing at her curiosity. He showed her how to tie knots with rope, how to start a small fire safely, and even how to whistle. She tried but only made a soft blowing sound, which made her laugh so hard she fell over. Her guards disapproved. "Princess, it is not proper to spend so much time with an off-worlder," they warned. But Liara ignored them. She felt safe with Daniel, and in her young heart, she saw him not as a stranger but as a friend. One evening, as the sky turned violet and stars began to appear, Liara sat beside Daniel while he repaired a broken circuit. She watched his hands move with focus. Suddenly she said, "When I grow up, I will marry you." Daniel almost dropped the tool. "What?" Liara repeated firmly. "When I grow up, I will marry you. You are kind. You make me laugh. You do not treat me like a crown. You treat me like Liara, that is rare." Daniel stared at her, unsure what to say. To him it was a child's innocent promise, spoken without understanding the weight of such words. He smiled kindly. "That's very sweet, Princess. But you're just a child. One day you'll grow up and forget about me." Liara shook her head stubbornly. "No, we keep our words. My people never break a vow. I said it, so it will be." Daniel didn't argue. He just laughed gently. All right then. If you say so. To Liara, his words were not a dismissal but an acceptance. In her mind, the promise was sealed. The next morning, the shuttle was finally repaired. Daniel powered up the engines and the ship hummed with life again. As he prepared to leave, Liara stood with her guards watching him. She looked smaller now, almost fragile, though her eyes remained bright. "Will you come back?" she asked. Daniel hesitated. "I don't know. The galaxy is big, but maybe one day our paths will cross again." Liara nodded. "Then I will wait. 20 years, 30 years, it does not matter. I will keep my vow." Daniel smiled sadly, knowing she would likely forget once she grew older. "Goodbye, Princess Liara. Stay strong." He boarded the shuttle, engines roaring as the craft lifted into the sky. Liara raised her small hand, watching as the human ship became a distant star. The guards tried to comfort her. "He is gone, Princess. Do not cling to the words of an off-worlder." But Liara whispered to herself, "He will return, he must." I promised. As the years passed, she would never forget. And somewhere in the endless galaxy, Daniel too remembered the little princess who had made him laugh, though he believed her words were nothing more than a child's dream. 20 years had passed since Daniel Hayes crashed on the alien world and met the little princess. In those years, the galaxy had changed. Humanity had built alliances, fought small wars, and discovered hundreds of new systems. Daniel himself had changed too. No longer the young explorer with a broken shuttle, he had become a respected ambassador. His calm nature and honest words had helped settle disputes between colonies and alien neighbors. People trusted him, not because he was powerful, but because he was steady. He listened. He spoke clearly. He never lied. Still, late at night, he sometimes remembered the strange days on that silver world. He would smile when he recalled the princess trying to whistle or tying knots badly, and sometimes he remembered her innocent vow, "When I grow up, I will marry you." Daniel always chuckled softly at that memory. She must have forgotten long ago, or so he believed. The delegation one bright morning, Daniel stood inside the Great Hall of Earth's Central Embassy. A royal delegation from a distant system was arriving to discuss trade and defense agreements. Diplomats in elegant uniforms gathered around, whispering about the visitors. The air was filled with expectation. The tall doors opened and the aliens entered. Their silver skin shimmered under the lights, their robes flowing like starlight. At their head walked a woman of striking presence. She was tall, graceful, and carried herself with quiet power. A jeweled crown rested on her brow, marking her as royalty. When Daniel saw her face, his heart nearly stopped. It was Liara, not the little girl he remembered, but a grown woman. Her eyes, though wiser now, still carried the same bright fire of curiosity. She looked around the hall, and when her gaze fell on him, she froze. For a heartbeat, it was as if the years melted away. Then she smiled. "Daniel Hayes," she said, her voice steady yet warm. "You have not changed as much as I thought." The hall went silent. Diplomats glanced at each other in confusion. How did their princess know this human so personally? Daniel bowed respectfully. "Princess Liara." His voice was calm, but inside his chest his heart raced. She stepped forward without hesitation. "Not princess. Now I am crown heir of the Star Throne. But to you, I am still Liara." The words shocked everyone. She was speaking to him as if they were old friends. The declaration. The meeting continued formally, but whispers filled the air. When the session ended, Liara requested a private moment with Daniel. The counselors reluctantly agreed. In a smaller chamber, she turned to him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Liara broke the silence. "Do you remember, Daniel? The forest. The silver trees, my vow?" Daniel blinked, almost laughing. "You mean when you said you would marry me?" "Liara, you were a child. I never thought you truly meant it." But Liara's expression did not waver. Her eyes locked on his. "We do not speak empty words. I was young, yes, but I swore it, and I have returned to fulfill it." Daniel stepped back, stunned. "Liara, 20 years have passed. You are heir to a throne. I am only an ambassador. Surely you don't mean—" "I do mean it," she interrupted firmly. "I have waited, Daniel. Others offered alliances, suitors from noble houses, warriors, and princes. I refused them all. Because my word was given." "To you." Daniel was speechless. He had faced angry generals and clever politicians, but this was beyond anything he expected. Tension in the hall news of Liara's declaration spread quickly among both humans and aliens. Some laughed, calling it a romantic story from a legend. Others whispered with concern. A royal heir binding herself to a human? That could change the balance of power. Not all were pleased. Some alien nobles frowned deeply at the idea. It is improper, one said. A union with an off-worlder will weaken our bloodline. Even some humans doubted. Is this wise? One diplomat asked Daniel quietly. If you accept, you'll be stepping into a storm. If you refuse, you may insult her entire people. Daniel felt the weight of every gaze. He had never asked for this. He had only been kind to a lonely child, never knowing it would echo across decades. A walk together. Later, Liara asked Daniel to walk with her through the embassy gardens. Lanterns glowed softly, lighting the path. The sound of water from fountains filled the air. Liara looked at him with quiet intensity. Do you think I am foolish, Daniel? He shook his head slowly. No, but I think you built your life around words spoken long ago. You could have forgotten, yet you didn't. Why? Her voice softened. Because you were the first to see me as more than a crown. When I was a child, everyone bowed, everyone feared my title. But you tied knots with me. You laughed with me. You treated me as a friend. That memory guided me as I grew. It reminded me what I truly wanted in life. Not fear, not empty power, but trust, honesty, a bond that is real. Daniel listened, feeling the truth in her words. Yet he also knew the dangers. Liara, your people may not accept this. My people may not either. Are you ready for what comes? She nodded without hesitation. I am ready, and I will not bend. The challenge ahead. In the following days, debates shook the embassy. Alien nobles confronted Liara, urging her to reconsider. Human officials tried to persuade Daniel to step back. But Liara stood firm, declaring openly, I will honor my vow. My bond is with Daniel Hayes. The galaxy stirred with whispers. Some admired her courage. Others saw only danger. But one thing became clear. This was no longer a private promise. It was becoming a political storm. Daniel, caught in the center, wrestled with his thoughts. He respected Liara deeply. He admired her strength, her loyalty. Yet he feared what their bond might cost both their people. Still, when he looked into her eyes, he saw not just the crown heir of a mighty empire, but the same little girl who once sat beside him by the fire, trying to whistle, and he realized that maybe, just maybe, some promises are not meant to be forgotten. Ending of Part 2A's The Embassy Halls filled with arguments. Plans and warnings. Daniel stood at his window, staring at the stars. He whispered to himself, what have I stepped into? Behind him the doors opened and Liara entered silently. She stood beside him, her presence calm and certain. Do not fear, Daniel, she said softly. We began this story together. We will face the rest together too. He turned to her, searching her face. She was no longer the child he once knew. She was a leader, a woman of unshakable will, and she had chosen him. The future was uncertain. But one truth was clear. The little princess had returned and she had not forgotten. The days after Liara's declaration were anything but calm. The great halls of the Earth Embassy echoed with arguments. Human diplomats paced nervously, while alien nobles whispered furiously among themselves. To some, the vow between Liara and Daniel was a beautiful story of loyalty. To others, it was a dangerous risk that could shake alliances. Daniel, caught in the center, felt the pressure from every side. Wherever he walked, eyes followed him, some filled with respect, others with suspicion. He had never wanted to be the center of such storms. He had only done his duty years ago, help a stranded child feel less lonely, and now that simple kindness had become the heart of a galaxy-wide debate. Voices of opposition. One evening, Daniel was called to a meeting with the Earth Council. The chamber was large, with screens showing stars beyond the orbiting station. The counselors sat in a half-circle, their faces serious. Ambassador Hayes, one began, we recognize your past service, but this situation is highly irregular. A royal heir of another species offering herself to a human. Do you understand the consequences? Daniel kept his voice steady. I never asked for this. I never expected it. But Liara is firm in her choice. What would you have me do? Humiliate her? Refuse her openly? A counselor leaned forward. Sometimes duty requires refusal. If you accept, many alien factions will see it as humanity overreaching. If you reject, her people may see it as insult. Either path is dangerous. Daniel left the meeting with heavy steps. The humans wanted caution. The aliens wanted tradition. and Liara wanted him. Meanwhile, Liara faced her own storm. In her private chambers, alien nobles confronted her. "My lady," one elder said, bowing stiffly, "you cannot bind yourself to a human. It breaks every law of bloodline and heritage."
"Think of your throne."
Liara's eyes flashed. "The throne means nothing if it is built on fear and empty rules." "My word was given. I will not break it," another noble muttered darkly. "He is not one of us. He will never be accepted, and neither will you if you continue down this path." Liara stood tall. "If acceptance comes only by abandoning honor, then I want no part of it." Her words silenced the room, but the nobles' anger did not fade. They left with cold faces, whispering among themselves. The bond grows. Despite the chaos around them, Daniel and Liara found quiet moments together. One evening, they walked again in the gardens of the embassy. Lanterns glowed softly, and the air smelled of blossoms. Liara turned to him. "Do you regret meeting me, Daniel? Do you wish I had forgotten?" Daniel paused. "No, I don't regret it. But I fear what it means for you. You carry more than yourself. You carry a people, a throne, and I am just one man." Liara smiled faintly. "You are not just one man. You are the one who gave me truth when I was a child. Do you know what that meant? My own court treated me as a jewel to be polished, a weapon to be shaped. But you—" She touched the leaves of a nearby tree. "You treated me as a friend. That shaped me more than all their lessons." Daniel looked at her, seeing not just the princess but the woman who had carried his memory across 2 decades. Slowly he nodded. "Then perhaps this is not only about us. Perhaps it is about showing both our people that bonds can be stronger than fear." Liara's eyes shone. "Yes, that is what I believe. Enemies in the shadows, but not everyone shared their hope." In a shadowed chamber elsewhere in the station, a group of alien nobles gathered. Their faces were grim. "This cannot be allowed," one hissed. "If the crown heir binds herself to a human, our traditions will shatter. Other houses will lose faith. Some may even rebel," another nodded. "Then we must act quietly. The union must end before it begins." "And if words do not sway her?" "Then we use sharper methods." The group exchanged cold glances. The decision was made. Testing the human, the first attempt was not direct violence. Instead, the nobles tried to discredit Daniel. During a public council session, one elder stood and challenged him. "You claim to be worthy of our heir. Then prove it. What strength does a human have? Our warriors can lift mountains. Our scholars hold the wisdom of centuries. What do you bring?" All eyes turned to Daniel. He stood slowly, meeting the alien's gaze. "I do not have your strength," he admitted. "I do not have your long memory. But I bring what humans always bring. We learn, we adapt, we survive. When everything seems lost, we find a way forward. That is our strength." Murmurs spread through the hall. Some nodded thoughtfully, others scoffed. But Liara's gaze was steady, full of pride. After the session, she told him, "They will keep testing you, but do not bend. You showed them truth, and truth always leaves a mark. A subtle threat late." One night, Daniel worked alone in his quarters, reviewing reports. The door slid open and a tall figure entered silently. Daniel turned, startled. It was one of the alien nobles. The noble's voice was low and sharp. "Human, listen carefully. Walk away from her. Refuse her openly, and this storm will end. Stay, and you will bring ruin upon both our peoples." Daniel frowned. "Is that a warning or a threat?" "Both," the noble replied coldly. "You think her affection protects you, but it cannot shield you forever. Do not test our patience." With that, the noble left, the door sliding shut behind him. Daniel sat in silence, heart heavy. He knew then that opposition was not only political, it was personal and dangerous. Liara's resolve. When Daniel told Liara about the threat, her eyes burned with anger. "They dare to threaten you under my roof? Then they threaten me as well." "Liara," Daniel said gently, "don't rush. If you push too hard, you may give them excuse to strike sooner." She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "You are right, but I will not let them frighten you. I promise to stand with you, Daniel. I will keep that promise." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Daniel spoke softly. "You remind me of the girl in the forest, stubborn, certain, unshakable." Liara smiled. "And you remind me of the man who told me patience is stronger than fear. Perhaps together, we are exactly what is needed." The rising storm as days passed, tension grew sharper. Human diplomats worried about war. Alien nobles whispered of rebellion. The station itself felt like a fragile glass, ready to crack at any moment. And yet, at the center of it all, Daniel and Liara stood side by side. Their bond, once a child's vow, had become a symbol, of hope to some, of danger to others. Enemies moved in the shadows, planning their next strike. Friends tried to shield them, and both human and alien eyes watched closely, waiting for the next move. Daniel knew the storm was coming. He could feel it in the air. But when he looked at Liara, her calm strength gave him courage. Whatever came, they would face it together. The embassy station that floated above Earth had never felt so tense. Rumors filled every hall. Some said alien nobles were preparing to strike. Others whispered that human leaders were planning to separate Daniel and Liara by force. Soldiers patrolled more often, and every visitor was checked twice at the gates. Daniel felt the weight of it each day. When he walked through the corridors, guards watched him closely as if expecting him to be attacked at any moment. Liara stood tall beside him, calm and proud, but even she knew danger was near. "We are sitting inside a storm," Daniel said one evening, as they looked out at Earth's blue surface far below. Liara nodded. Yes, and storms do not stay quiet forever. The storm finally broke during a grand diplomatic banquet. Representatives from dozens of worlds sat at long tables, food and drink set before them. Music played softly in the background. On the surface it was peace, but beneath tension pulsed like fire. Liara wore her crown that night, her silver gown glowing faintly under the lights. Daniel sat at her side, dressed in a simple but formal uniform. The banquet was meant to show unity. Instead, it became the stage for betrayal. Halfway through the evening, the lights flickered. The music stopped. A loud crash echoed as the doors slammed shut. Suddenly, soldiers in dark armor stormed the hall, their weapons raised. Gasps filled the room. Diplomats ducked for cover. Guards rushed forward, but the armored soldiers were swift and organized. They cut through the defenders with shocking skill. At their head stood a tall alien noble, his face hard as stone. "The throne will not be stained by human hands," he shouted. "Seize her!" Chaos exploded. Daniel's choice in the confusion, Liara was the clear target. The attackers rushed toward her table, pushing aside anyone in their path. Daniel stood quickly, his heart pounding. He had no weapon, no armor, nothing but his own hands. But when he saw the fear in Liara's eyes, his body moved without thought. "Stay behind me," he shouted, grabbing a heavy metal tray from the table. It was hardly a weapon, but it was something. The first attacker swung a blade. Daniel raised the tray, blocking the strike with a sharp clang. Pain shot through his arm, but he held firm. He shoved the soldier back, then swung the tray into another's helmet with all his strength. The attacker staggered, surprised by the human's defiance. Liara called to him, "Daniel!" But he did not retreat. More soldiers closed in. Daniel grabbed a chair, using it as a shield, forcing them back step by step. His movements were clumsy compared to trained warriors, but he fought with a kind of raw determination that caught them off guard. He did not fight like a noble or even a soldier. He fought like a man who refused to let go. The turning point guards loyal to Liara rushed to her side, finally pushing through the chaos. Together with Daniel, they formed a small circle around her, holding back the attackers. The leading noble sneered. "Pathetic human. Do you think your weakness can protect her?" Daniel's chest burned, sweat dripping down his face, but he stood tall. "Maybe I am weak, but I don't give up. That's something you'll never understand." With a sudden move, he grabbed a fallen guard's staff and swung it hard, knocking the noble off balance. The other attackers hesitated. For a moment, their confidence cracked. That moment was enough. Loyal guards surged forward, rallying around Liara and Daniel. Together, they pushed the attackers back. The coup attempt faltered under the sudden resistance, escaped through the halls, but the danger was not over. The hall was still filled with enemy soldiers, and more were coming. A loyal captain shouted, "We must get the heir to safety." Daniel grabbed Liara's hand. "This way!" They ran through side corridors, guided by guards. The sound of boots echoed behind them as enemies chased. Blaster shots scorched the walls. Daniel shielded Liara as best he could, shoving her forward when she stumbled. At one turn, a soldier appeared suddenly, raising his weapon. Without thinking, Daniel tackled him, slamming him against the wall. The weapon clattered to the floor. Daniel picked it up, though he had never trained with alien arms. He held it tightly anyway, ready to use it if he must. Liara's voice was steady despite the chaos. Keep moving, Daniel. They want me, not you. You don't have to. Yes, I do, he interrupted firmly. I gave you my word, just as you gave me yours. Standing together at last, they reached a secure chamber deep within the station. Heavy doors locked behind them and guards formed a wall at the entrance. For a moment there was silence except for the heavy breathing of those inside. Liara turned to Daniel. He was bruised, his hands shaking, but his eyes were steady. You risked everything, she whispered. Daniel laughed weakly. I didn't think, I just couldn't let them take you. Liara stepped closer, her gaze soft but fierce. Do you see now why I chose you? Not for strength of arm or weight of crown, but because you stand when others would fall. That is what I need. That is what my people need. Daniel looked at her, and for the first time he began to believe she might be right. The aftermath by dawn. Loyal forces had regained control of the station. The coup had failed. Many attackers were captured. Others fled into the shadows. The alien noble who led them was brought in chains before Liara's council. He spat at her feet. You shame our bloodline. You bring ruin with this human. Liara's voice rang clear. The only shame is betrayal. You spoke of honor, but you struck in darkness. This human you despise fought with more courage than any of you. He stood when you turned. Her words spread quickly through the halls. Even those who doubted her began to whisper in respect. The story of Daniel's stand, armed only with a tray and a chair, was retold again and again. Some laughed at the image, but none denied the truth. The human had faced warriors and had not broken. Quiet reflection later, in her private chamber, Liara sat with Daniel. He was patched up, his arm bandaged, but he still looked tired. You have changed everything, she said softly. Daniel shook his head. I only did what anyone would do. Liara smiled faintly. No, many would have run. Many would have hidden behind guards. But you fought. You protected. That is not weakness. That is strength of another kind. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Then he said quietly, Maybe your vow was not just a child's dream after all. Liara's eyes shone. It was never a dream. It was a promise. The sun rose over the embassy station, painting the metallic corridors in warm light. The chaos of the coup had passed, but its echoes remained. Guards patrolled every hallway. Diplomats whispered urgently, and the captured rebels were secured in holding cells. Yet amidst all this tension, Daniel and Liara stood together, unshaken. For the first time in decades, Liara felt a quiet certainty. The trials of the past days had tested not just her will but Daniel's, and he had proven himself in ways that no words could measure. Daniel, she said softly as they looked out over the planet below. We have faced more than any young couple ever should. Yet here we are, together. Daniel smiled faintly. Yes, together. I never imagined my life would turn like this. Liara's eyes sparkled. Nor I, but our paths were meant to cross. You stood by me, and now the world must accept it. The council meeting. The next morning, the council of alien elders gathered in the grand chamber. The captured noble who had led the coup was brought in. His face was pale, but his voice remained defiant. You cannot force your will, Crown Heir. This human, he is not one of us. He will bring weakness to the throne. Liara stood tall. Weakness? No. He has shown more courage, more loyalty, and more strength of heart than any of you. He defended me when you struck in darkness. That is the strength of a human. Murmurs spread through the council. Many looked surprised. Others whispered anxiously. But one by one the nobles began to nod, slowly realizing the truth in Liara's words. A senior elder spoke carefully. Perhaps we underestimated this human. He acted without fear when our warriors faltered. That is honorable. Another elder added, if the Crown Heir's vow was sincere, perhaps it is the promise that must guide us, not our fear. Finally, one by one, the council agreed. The union between Liara and Daniel would be allowed. The storm of opposition was broken. Announcement to the galaxy word of the council's decision spread quickly. Across human colonies and alien worlds, messages circulated about the Crown Heir's choice. Some celebrated the story of loyalty and courage. Others watched in quiet curiosity, unsure of how such a union would affect their politics. But for Liara and Daniel, the moment was personal. No longer whispers or promises, this was now reality. The little princess who had once sat beside him in a forest making a childish vow had returned as a leader, and the man she had remembered had proven himself worthy. They prepared for the ceremony, a simple but beautiful event designed to honor both their cultures. The ceremony, in the embassy's central hall, decorated with silvery banners and glowing lanterns, representatives from dozens of worlds gathered. The air buzzed with anticipation. Daniel stood at one end, feeling the weight of every gaze upon him. Beside him, Liara radiated calm authority. The ceremony began with words from both human and alien traditions. Liara spoke first. "Today," she said, her voice clear and steady, "we unite not only as individuals but as symbols of trust, courage, and the strength found in honor. Our bond is not a surrender of culture, nor a breaking of tradition. It is proof that hearts and promises can shape the future, stronger than fear and suspicion." Daniel stepped forward. "I, Daniel Hayes, stand before you all to honor this promise made 20 years ago. I have never forgotten the kindness that shaped me when I was younger, and I vow to honor Liara and her people with respect, courage, and loyalty." The words echoed across the hall. Some alien nobles bowed in respect. Human diplomats whispered approval. Even those who had doubted now nodded, realizing that this union was genuine, earned, and powerful, a symbol of hope. As Liara and Daniel joined hands, a hush fell over the crowd. Then slowly applause began, first soft, then louder, until the hall was filled with sound. This was more than a personal union. It was a signal to the galaxy. Humans and aliens could work together. Respect could bridge worlds. A single act of kindness remembered across decades could change the fate of civilizations. Liara looked at Daniel, her eyes bright.
We have made them see.
"Not just who we are, but what humans and aliens can accomplish together." Daniel nodded. "And we will continue to show them. Together." Bonds beyond words. After the ceremony, Liara and Daniel walked through the gardens once more. Lanterns glowed softly, reflecting in the water of small fountains. They were alone for a moment, away from the eyes of diplomats and nobles. "Do you remember the first time we met?" Liara asked, smiling. "You were fixing your shuttle and I was asking too many questions." Daniel laughed. "How could I forget? You were stubborn even then. And fearless," Liara chuckled. "And I remember telling you I would marry you. You smiled and said it was sweet, never thinking I would return." Daniel looked at her, his heart full. "I should have guessed." "You never forget anything important." Liara reached out, touching his hand gently. "Nor do I forget the people who shape us. You shaped me, Daniel, and now we shape a new future together." The new era over the following weeks, both humans and aliens witnessed the change. Trade agreements were signed more quickly. Cultural exchanges became common. And everywhere the story of Liara and Daniel was told, not as a tale of romance alone, but as proof that honor, courage, and human ingenuity mattered across the stars. Daniel found himself traveling with Liara frequently, advising, learning, and helping her navigate her duties. He discovered that his human perspective, his ability to think creatively, act decisively, and stay calm under pressure, was valued in ways he had never imagined. Liara, in turn, found strength in his honesty and clarity. Together they became not only a couple but a symbol, two beings from different worlds, proving that unity could overcome fear, and that small acts of kindness could ripple across time and space. Reflection. One quiet night. Daniel and Liara stood on a balcony looking at the stars. They had survived threats, political storms, and doubts. They had proven their bond in the harshest test, a fight for survival. Liara spoke softly, almost to herself. "I kept my promise. 20 years ago I swore it, and now I am fulfilling it." Daniel turned to her, smiling. "And I kept mine, even if I didn't know what I was promising at the time." "We did it together," she nodded. "We did. And the galaxy will remember this, not because of crowns or titles, but because two hearts chose loyalty and courage over fear." Daniel's eyes shone. "Then let's keep showing them. Let's make this galaxy a place where promises matter, and where humans and aliens can trust each other." Liara squeezed his hand. "Yes, together." Ending in the days that followed, Liara and Daniel continued their work. They united not only by love but by purpose. Their bond became legendary, a tale told across star systems of the human who once fixed a shuttle and the princess who kept a promise across 20 years. For some, it was a story of romance. For others, a lesson in loyalty, courage, and the quiet strength of humanity. And as the stars glimmered above, Daniel realized something profound. The promise made in innocence long ago had changed the course of two worlds, two hearts, one vow and countless lives shaped by the courage to stand, to trust and to honor what is true. The little princess had returned. She had kept her word. And humanity had proven once more that strength comes not only from might but from heart.